In our last session, so we have started discussing about IAM. So we have seen how to create an IAM
Good
user.
morning, Ganesh sir. This is Vikram, new join today. So I haven't gone through the previous videos. Maybe I will go through later. Yeah, just giving my intro. Thanks.
Yeah, Vikram. So please go through last two videos. So
Okay.
remaining, you can go you can go through those videos at any time. So
Okay.
my sincere suggestion is so go through yesterday's and day before yesterday's videos.
Okay, sir. Okay, noted, sir.
So we discussed how to create AWS account on our 23rd session.
Okay.
24th we have discussed introduction to IAM. So we are going to continue IAM today.
Okay, sir.
So you might feel bit difficult today as your first session, but if you cover previous session, so that's not going to be a big thing. So please
Okay,
go through these two sessions.
Okay, sir. Noted. Thank you.
So while creating our IAM user, we have an option. First of all, we need to choose what is a username. So then we need to choose the access type. So we have AWS Management Console access. By using browser, you will get by using username and password and sign in URL link. So then you can log in. If you select this AWS Management Console access, programmatic access, this is CLI, they are going to get an access key ID and secret access key. So whenever you're using AWS CLI or API calls or CDK or SDKs, so then we are going to use this programmatic access. So we can give permissions from an option called policy. Policy is nothing but a document that contains set of permissions on our AWS environment. And this policy document returns in JSON format, and we have policy generator. So today we will go in detail about these policies. So in our last session, we have associated S3 full access to this S3 user, EC2 full access to the EC2 user, and we verified it, right? So now we are going to create our own policies and all, we will. Right, so before starting today's session, any questions for me, guys? No questions? All good?
Yeah.
Okay, so here I'm logging to my AWS account. So I'm going to give my password. So we have enabled multi-factor authentication on this AWS account. So I need to get connected to that application. I need to open my mobile device. Then whatever the password I got, 6-digit PIN number I got within that application, I need to give that. So this is the 6-digit PIN number I got now. I have entered that and sign in. All right, here I logged into my AWS account. Okay, so now I'm working as a root user. By looking this, you should tell now. If it is an IAM user, you are going to get a user name @ account name. So if you are finding @ here, so that means you're working as an IAM user. Okay, so let's navigate to IAM. So now I'm in IAM screen. So let me create a user. So in our last session, we created EC2 user, S3 user. And similarly, I want to create another user. But for that user, I want to allocate multiple permissions. So I need a policy. See, one thing I want to mention here, see, yesterday for this EC2 user or this S3 user, what we did, we have given permission on S3. So now, is he able to access any other service other than S3? Apart from S3, is he
No.
able to access any other service?
No.
No.
See, I'm nowhere mentioning, okay, don't give access on all these services and all. So am I giving such type of statements here? No.
No.
I'm mentioning, okay, for this user, provide permission on S3. Remaining all services, I'm not mentioning. So if you are not mentioning, then those services will not allocate to that user. So this mechanism, we call it as a implicit allow. Implicit allow means user will get permissions on the selected services only. Remaining all services will deny automatically. So this means implicit allow. So now I selected S3 for this user. So this user can access only S3 access. Remaining services? No. So that is one thing. Now let me take a simple diagram. So let's assume this is service A or room number A. You can take it in any manner. So now we have a user. So for this user, you are mentioning, okay, you have access on S3. You have access on room number A. So this user can access only room number A. If we try to access room number B, you are nowhere mentioning to this user. So he can access only room number A. That's what I'm mentioning here. Implicit allow. Whatever the service you associate, whatever the permissions you associate to that user, only that services he can access. Now, you created some deny policy and all, and you mentioned, okay, you have admin access, but not on this particular service and all. So in that case, what happens and all, we will discuss now. Okay, I think the first scenario is clear and we already performed that. This implicit allow, right? So now let me go and create a couple of policies. I need a policy to add permissions on multiple services. For that, navigate to policy. So far what we did, we have associated AWS policy. See, total we have three types of policies, guys. One is customer managed policy. This is, we creates this. If you create this policy, we call it as a customer managed policy. How we can recognize? Simple, we don't have AWS logo. Next to this policy, do we have AWS logo here? No AWS logo. So if you don't have AWS logo, okay, that is a customer managed policy. So AWS managed policy. So when coming to this, AWS created these policies based on the services. Take any service. Amazon already have a policy for that. Take any service. So Amazon already have read-only policy, full permissions and all. If you are taking, search for S3. See, S3 full access is there, S3 read-only access. These are the pretty common one. Remaining outpost, we will talk about that, quick site access, S3 lens. So basically this AWS lens, no? So it can be used to analyze the data within the S3 bucket. That is another service. DMS, database migration service, database backup you can take and you can store in S3. So related to all services AWS is giving. EC2 full access is there, EC2 read-only access is there, EC2 container service, EC2 role, EC2 spot instance. So how many policies possible for that service? Those all policies AWS itself is giving, but what is the basis they are giving? On service basis. And this count is going to increase. If Amazon find any other use case, they are going to introduce another service and all. So that is AWS managed. Third one is AWS managed job function. So this also created by AWS only. AWS created these policies, but based on the standard job roles. For example, a system administrator is there. For example, a database administrator is there. So this database administrator required permissions on multiple services, or administrator is there. So these job roles, it's not just limited to one particular service. He need access on multiple services. So what Amazon did intelligently, okay, if any database administrator got recruited to your organization. Okay, allocate this. So Amazon intelligently prepared these job based on the job functions. See, a new data scientist joined to your project, associate this. A database administrator joined, associate this. A billing team need access, associate this. Network administrator, associate this. So power user access. Yes, I will tell you what is the administrator access. See, here you have a simple description also. When coming to this administrator access, it gives full control and full access on all the resources and all, but not account related, like a changing support plan and all, it's not possible. See, if you observe this power user access, this also contains same definition, but except one service, that is IAM. See, this power user access, if you observe, see, till here the statement is same, provide full access to AWS services and resources, but does not allow management of users and admin. So this means power user means administrator access minus IAM. This is not hyphen, this is minus. You will get administrator access. So remaining all services you can work without any difficulty, but you cannot perform anything on IAM. That is what power user access. Okay, in similar manner, so what Amazon did based on job functions, Amazon is given all these. So you can choose if any system administrator joined, give this. So multiple services like involved here. So if you want to see what are the services involved within that policy, select that policy. Select that policy, scroll down. Here we have an option called JSON. Click on JSON, it shows all the JSON, or click on policy summary, it shows here. See here, it is giving EC to permissions. See, he's a database administrator. Why he need access on server? Yes, to verify whether application servers are running or not. That's why we are getting only list permissions. Database, DynamoDB is one of the database. So RDS, relational database service, full access. Redshift, data warehousing solution, full permission. But remaining all, only limited permissions. So such type of ones, Amazon giving based on the job functions. All right. So those are the three types. So can you delete this AWS managed policy? No.
No.
We cannot delete that AWS managed policy. So whenever you select any of the policy, for example, let's pick this administrator access, navigate to policy actions. If you want to attach to any other resources like, IAM user or permissions, we can associate to this user and all. But if you try to delete it, no. If it is already associated, you can even detach it. Okay, whatever the policy is selected, right, the administrator, it is associated to all these roles and this IAM user and all. So if you want to detach, select it, detach. So from that resource, this policy is going to detach. So AWS managed policy, we cannot, but customer managed policy, let's pick customer managed policy. Here I have something ready to, so I can go here, I can delete it. See, it's not even giving any error. So we are able to delete these customer managed policies successfully, right? So any questions on these three types, guys? All right. So now let's create a policy. I have a scenario. The scenario is the requirement. The requirement or scenario is I need an IAM user with admin permissions, but not on, but no permissions on S3. See, he need admin permissions. That means he need to get access on all the services, resource and all. But I don't want to provide permissions on S3. So can this scenario requirement satisfied by these AWS policies? If you want to, you can give administrator access. If you want to provide S3, you can go and associate S3 policy. But do we have any permission to Denny one service? If you go here, we have only one Denny, that is AWS Denny all. It Denny's all access other than login. Okay, so we don't have any permission to Denny the S3. So what we need to do? We need to create our own policy to Denny the access. We need to create our own policy to deny the access, then create an IAM user along with administrator permission, associate this deny S3 policy also. Let's see what happens, right? I hope you guys are clear with the requirement.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, can we assign multiple policy to a single user? Yes, Pragati, we can associate multiple policies to a single user. All right, now let me click on create policy. Before that, let me create a user. Click on create user. The username is going to be admin user, or else I'm going to call this user as a Avinash. And I'm going to select management console access, automated auto-generate password, required password reset. Next, now what permission you want to give? I want to associate administrator access. Selected that administrator access. Next, review. Here is the review. So I'm going to give like auto generate and required password reset as a yes. Then scroll down, click on create user. An IAM user got created. So I'm going to take another window and I'm going to give aws.com and sign into the console. Click on account AWS management console. So in our last session, we have given an alias name. My account alias name is Avisve1. I'm selecting an IAM user. I'm giving that alias name Avisve1. Click on next. Username is a Avinash is a username. Password auto-generated one. Here we got a password. Click on show. I'm copying that and pasting that here. Click on sign in. Now immediately, what is a old password? What is a new password? See, these password settings also we can configure. I'll show you in some time. So whatever the standard he must follow, that standard we can define. Then click on confirm password change. We logged into our AWS account. So now this guy have administrator access. So I can go to EC2, I can go to S3, I can go to IAM, and I can perform all the things. Okay, see, no error, nothing in EC2, no error, nothing in S3. I don't want to provide this S3 access. That's what I'm going to achieve. So I'm able to see all the users. I'm able to list all the users. But can we change the support plan? Let's try. I'm navigating to support center. So here is my current plan. That is a basic plan. Click on change. And see here, root account credentials are required. So if you want to change something related to account related, so we need to log in as a root user, then only it will possible. So now my requirement, I don't want to provide this service access. Remaining all services, yes, I'm okay to provide access to this user, but not S3, right? So for that, let's jump into our root user console and create a policy, a custom policy I'm going to create, right? So click on create policy, click on create policy, and here we have visual editor. So by using this visual editor only, we are going to create a policy. See, based on the service, we are selecting this JSON also updates automatically. So you no need to worry about the JSON. We always use this visual editor. For what service we are going to create a policy? For S3, we are going to create a policy. So go here, find the service. All right, I'm creating a policy for S3. So I'm selecting it. Now, what are all the actions you want to allow or deny. So at moment, it is creating for allow. You might get it out how we are saying it is creating for allow and all. So we don't have any explicit deny here. So click on switch to deny permission. Observe here deny S3. So whenever you find deny, then only it is creating a policy for denying the access. Okay, so I'm creating a policy to deny S3 all actions. See, I can go here and I can show you, but we really don't know what exactly bucket, what exactly object and all. So at moment, just select all S3 actions.
So can you repeat the step again?
Sorry,
So can you repeat this step again?
Amrit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Amrit this side.
Yeah, what step you want me to repeat?
So from where you getting to this window?
Are you on my screen only, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So don't practice simultaneously. Don't switch between your window and my window.
Okay.
So here we have an option, a big option. See here highlighted, create policy. Click on
Okay, sir. I
create
got it.
policy, choose a service, select the service. So I'm selecting S3 here, and here it is not showing anything deny. So that means it is creating a policy to allow the permissions. So I want to explicitly create a policy for deny permission. So click on switch to deny permission. So here deny S3. Deny S3 option is there. So what are all the actions you want to deny? For example, I want to give all read permissions. I want to provide all read permission. I don't want to give write permission. So I can deny only write permission here. So, but at moment, just select all S3 actions. I want to deny everything on S3. Why? Because we haven't discussed what is bucket and all. So just go and select all the resources. Now I'm going to deny everything on S3. Star means everything on all resources. What service? S3 service. So then scroll down. This is specific request conditions. We'll talk later. Then click on next. So do you want to provide any tags for this? You can give it. Then review. So what is the name you want to give? So I want to give a name S3 deny policy. So deny everything on S3 is the description I have given. Scroll down, click on create policy. Now, here I have created deny S3 policy. So for an existing user, I want to associate. So you can select, go to policy actions, attach, and you can attach from here. Otherwise, go to users, select the user. Here we have an option called add permissions. Click on add permission. Go to attach existing policy directly. Search for the required policy. Select it. Review. Add permission. Now, whenever we are trying to access this S3 and immediately see here, it is showing. So apart from S3, he can access all other services. Apart from S3, he can access all other services. So the important thing you need to understand here is, see, for this user, I have given administrator access. That means he can access any other service. So if new service comes also, that also by default he can access. Why? Because he have administrator access, right? Now, on top of administrator access, what I did, I have mentioned, okay, they need this particular service. So whenever this user is trying to access that service with administrator privileges, again, evaluation is going to happen at resource level and all. So here a deny got mentioned. So it's going to be denied explicitly. So we have explicitly denied. So these all remaining services, yes, without any difficulty, they can access. So one important thing you need to understand, Denny will always have highest priority. If you allow 100 times, but denied at any layer means either it is a user level, group level, or resource level. So, but denied at any layer, Denny will take effect. See, he have administrator access, but whatever the Denny policy we have given, the Denny is only taking effect here, right? So now you added some more permissions. You added the S3 full access. See, for the same user, I have given S3 full access that gives access on S3 platform. I have given administrator access that gives access on S3 platform again. S3 Denny policy. So 2 times I am allowing, 1 time I am denying. So even though if you go to S3, if you give a refresh, you won't get permission. So that's what I mentioned here. Even if you allow 100 times at any one layer, if you are setting it to Denny, Denny will take effect. So Denny will always have highest priority. That's what we call it as a, so whatever the one we have mentioned, explicit Denny. Explicit Denny means, so specifying Denny on the resources. So we are specifying Denny on the resources, and as we discussed, always Denny will take effect. Okay. So this is another scenario. So if you want to create a policy to allow one service and Denny one service, so in single statement itself, implicit allow will take effect, explicit Denny will take effect. So let's create a one policy like that. So now click on create policy. I want to create a policy. The requirement is I need a policy. So that policy should provide permissions on EC2, but not on S3. In future, if anyone associate full permissions also, admin permission also, S3 should not accessible. So this is my scenario. So in this case, I can simply create a policy, click on create a policy, select a service. What service I should provide access? Okay, I should provide access to EC2 on all EC2 actions. See, I'm not specifying Denny. Whenever you are clicking here, switch to Denny, then only it is going to create a policy for Denny operation. Otherwise, it is going to create for allow. So I'm going to select all the resources here. Don't worry about all this. Just select all resource. So now I'm allowing EC2, then add additional permissions. So here, service, I'm going to select S3. I'm selecting S3. What are all the actions? All actions. If you don't select this, again, it is going to create for allow permission. I'm going to switch to Denny. So S3, I'm allowing. S3, I'm denying. EC2, I'm allowing here. Then scroll down, select this and go and add all resources. Then scroll down, click on next. And do you want to add any tag? You can give it review. And here is a name. So name allow EC2 and Denny S3. So if you associate this policy to any user, it allows EC2 full access and Denny S3. So a valid description, then create a policy. So now create another user, associate this, like, for example, you have a user, for that user, you associate that policy, then you can just go and test it. He can access only EC2. S3 explicitly denied, remaining all services implicitly denied. I didn't mention anything, but implicit deny is going to take effect. Why? Because we are not mentioning anything related to that services. So that's what the logic here. Now we have a handy tool. Okay, I'm open to all your questions, guys. So any questions here for me so far?
Yes, sir. This is Vikram.
Yes.
So
Vikram.
you create users in here, right? In the real time where we are migrating from the on-premises servers to the AWS servers. So when they connect the Active Directory, all these new all the users, existing users will automatically show here.
Yes.
Okay. So meaning like it will auto show with a password. What about the password? The password will be still existing.
First of all, Vikram, we haven't discussed how to integrate with on-premise users.
Okay.
We haven't discussed that yet. We have a dedicated session on directory services and all. There we will discuss.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
Sir, so is it fair to say that a policy is a collection of services, resources, and actions?
Yes.
Okay. The second question is how about you set up conflicting policies? Is that possible? Does AWS has validations on that? Or
Yes, I'm going to explain that. I'm going to explain. That's what our next topic is.
Okay.
Okay, try to shoot questions related to the topics we already covered or we discussed some time back. Right?
Avinash, I have a small question. Consider I have like 10 permissions or 10 permissions defined to me. If I want to check, I mean, for example, I have like S3 access, like 10 different
You mean
rows.
you want to verify validations?
Yeah, validations.
I'm going to talk about that.
Oh, we have separate topic. Okay.
See, right now, we have disabled permissions for S3, right? And only given permission for EC2.
Yes.
Now I want to access enable give permissions for S3. If I give permissions for S3, it will take or it will not take.
That you should tell now. Why? Because I took like from last 20 minutes and I explained this. Now tell me, you tell me which one is going to take effect based on this highlighted statement.
So deny, sir. Actually, you should say if you allow. It says all. So maybe it's misstatement. The spelling all.
See, deny will be the always highest priority.
Yes.
In the first example, what we have done is we have denied at the end.
Yes.
We have given allow permission for S3. At last, we have denied it.
Yes.
But here, firstly, we have denied the permission. Now, if we are going to give access to the S3, will it work or not?
Okay. Can you see that highlighted statement?
Yeah.
Any layer.
Deny.
So
Any layer.
it regardless of like, whether you are giving first or last or either is it is user level or group level. That's why specially mentioned. If you're denying it any layer, deny is going to take effect. Deny will always have highest priority.
Okay. Now, if you want to give the S3 permissions enable to that user, we need to go back to that permission. We need to edit it and then we can enable it, right?
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
you must remove the deny statement. Then only that user can access. If you gave admin access at user level, group level, how many times you are allowing, that doesn't matter. And deny is going to take effect if you have deny statement. So can you share an example of how the policies are defined based on front-end business requirement? How is the consumer access? Okay, this is not related to, we haven't discussed about business requirement or delivering application to end customer, Mrs. Sri. So we are providing access to another AWS user and we are restricting. So this is permissions AWS only. When coming to user level and all that we will discuss whenever we discuss it, like EC2 and all. So these topic is just limited to only AWS and its user access and all. So is there any limitation for permissions, or we can add a number of the permission, but there is a size limit. So 1 MB is a size limit. The JSON file should not exceed 1 MB. If it is exceeding, we do have another option called inline policy that we can associate. Can the root user sees the IAM user password? No, Manoj. He cannot, but if he want, he can reset all the user password. Can give instructions
only
also.
the root user.
Yeah.
Yeah, only the root user only able to give this policy and give permissions, or any other custom role or something job function is there which can provide all these policies and have access to this to give to any IAM user.
Yeah, good question. So now I'm working as a root user. Here I'm working as a root user, but so I mentioned, but I mentioned that we really don't log in as a root user and all. So we can create an IAM user, then we can provide IAM permissions to that user, then he can access. So whoever have permissions on IAM, they can. For example, I'm adding a user. So this guy is going to work on IAM admin. He's an IAM admin, and I'm going to select management console access and all, and I'm going to associate a policy related to IAM. See here, I'm giving IAM full access. So in future, if any requirement is coming to reset the password and all, that IAM admin, we can contact to that IAM admin and he can do that. So it depends on the permission you associated. Okay, Pragati got a question. What happened to the account when a policy was deleted? It's still available, but with no permissions. You can log in. Apart from that, he can't do anything. Yes, please. Any other questions?
Is there any permission that is exclusively with the root account, right? That could not be given as a permission, or could not be
No,
added as a policy.
the highest permission ones are these two, like, administrator access and power user access. So there is nothing like, root level permissions and all. These administrator access is the highest permission for an IAM user. This is highest minus IAM.
Okay.
Right. So now let's see how we can evaluate that user permissions. What is your problem, Amrit? Can you write down that question pretty clearly? Can given steps also? What does it means? So you're posting same question again and again. So write that question clearly. So this session is a recorded one. You can go through a number of the times.
Raghunath,
Yes, please.
why do we need two accounts like the root user and IAM user? So why they can't provide only single one?
Okay, I hope you attended our last session.
Last I missed it a few stuff. So
Okay, so here we clearly mentioned root user is going to have unrestricted access. So this user might delete your AWS account, or he might delete any of the resource if you provide these root credentials to multiple users. So within an AWS environment, you are not the only one who manages that entire account. Along with you, your teammates also is there. So one teammate, he need to work only on S3. Another guy, he need to work only on EC2. If you gave these root credentials to all the users, they might delete another services and all. So we want to limit their access based on the job role, based on the task, based on the service they are going to work on. So for that purpose only, we need IAM user.
yeah, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So we don't have this IAM is a global service and S3 also global service. So region wise, there is no option to Denny permissions Prasanna.
Sir, one question that S3 user, we can see at one glance, what are the denied, what are the allowed in a single, any UI for this?
All right. So let's evaluate the permissions of an IAM user. That's what I'm talking now. So you have a user. So this Avinash user is there. So you created this IAM user and you have shared that permission to, like you shared that username and password to that Avinash user. And he is like, trying to perform something. He is trying to create an S3 bucket. Please go on mute, Swaraj. So he is trying to create a bucket and it is not success. So you observe here, like, multiple policies are there. Amazon S3 full access is there, administrator access is there. And even like, you added this user to a group where that group is also giving S3 permissions. So at group level, he have allowed the permissions. At user level, he have the permissions. But whenever that user is trying to access, so it's not happening. So you want to evaluate his permissions, which policy is allowing, which policy is denying. So now if you observe, this one is allowing, this one also is allowing, and from group we have some permission, this one also is allowing, but he's saying he's not able to create a bucket. So you really don't know. For example, he have like a 10 policies, 20 policies and all. So now you want to evaluate that. Okay, which one is allowing, which one is denying, which one is causing the denying. So for that, navigate to dashboard. We have policy simulator. Here is a policy simulator. Click on that policy simulator. Navigate to policy simulator. Select the user, what user permission you want to test. See here we have an option. You can even evaluate permissions at group level or roles level. So I'm selecting user, Avinash user. So this user contains all these policies. If you scroll down, some policy coming from group level, so that's why multiple user option symbol here. So this guy have all these policies. With all these policies enabled, can he perform something at S3? So I'm selecting S3. What action you want to? Okay, I want to test create bucket. With all these permissions, can this guy create an S3 bucket or not? So selecting the action, then click on run simulation. Now the end output is going to be denied. With all these permissions, this guy, when he tried to create a bucket, what is output? It's going to be denied. See here, what is denying? So statement S3 deny policy is denying. See, whenever you hover your cursor, one matching statement, click for details. If you want to see what part of the policy is denying, click on show statement. See, this particular part in S3 deny policy, this is a customer managed policy. This particular part is not allowing this user to create a bucket. What happens if this user don't have that policy? So I'm unchecking this. If this user don't have this policy, whenever he is running the simulation, see, it is allowed. What statement is allowing? Total 3 statements. See, this IAM policy is allowing, this IAM policy also allowing, this IAM policy also allowing. This is from group level, this is from user level, this is from directly associated one. So if this user don't have this IAM change password policy, run simulation, still he can. If he don't get permission from group level, can he? Still he can do that. With administrator, without administrator, yes, still he can do that. So with both, so you can add, remove, you can evaluate whether this guy can perform this operation with all these permissions or not. While troubleshooting, this is a tool we are going to use. IAM policy simulator is a tool. Not only for this user, if you want to pick any other user, if you want to verify for this user, with these permissions, can he? Yes, he can. So that is another option. So by using policy simulator, we can evaluate the user permissions. So I hope a couple of guys raise the same question and I have covered the topic now.
Avinash, one small question. So every IAM user can use this IAM stimulator, policy stimulator, or only the
whoever have valid permissions on IAM.
Okay.
So this simulator also comes under IAM. Whoever have valid permissions on IAM, only they can.
Okay.
We can evaluate permissions of an IAM user using this policy simulator. All right, we have a couple of options that we really don't use much, but it is good to know topics. Two topics. One is inline policy. Second one is permissions boundary. So when coming to this permissions boundary, so you can define maximum permissions you want to allocate to that user. Accidentally, if any other user allocated highest permissions also, that should not take effect. In such type of scenarios, we are going to use an option called permissions boundary. See, I'll give a very simple example. So in a cricket match, for a ball, how many runs we can get? Highest runs, 6, right? For a valid ball, the batsman, the boundary length is 100 meters and he hit that ball to 100 meters. So 6 runs we will get. Okay. So that why? Because that is a boundary. The 6 runs is a boundary. So for example, so the batsman hit the ball to 200 meters. So will he awarded with 12 runs? See, 100 meters is a boundary, but the batsman hit 200 meters. So now, will the batsman get 200? We'll consider as a 2 sixes and will they give 12 runs? No, right? So the boundary is 6 runs. So in similarly, you can set a boundary for an IAM user. So how big permissions you are giving, that won't take effect. Only boundary level permissions is going to allocate it to that user. Okay, let me create a user. I'm navigating, add a user. See, I'm giving a username. So test user 1 is a name I'm giving. I'm selecting management console access. I'm enforcing this user to create a new password. Next, permissions. See what I'm doing. I'm going to attach existing policy directly. I'm giving S3 full access to this user. And I got a doubt in future. Someone may come and they might they might add more permission to this user and all, or else. So at any moment, I want to limit this user access to only S3. So in that case, we can scroll down bottom, set permissions boundary. Scroll down, create a user without a permission boundary. That's a default option. Use a permission boundary to control the maximum user permissions. This is an advanced feature used to delegate permissions management to others and all. So just scroll down, search for S3. Okay, I'm giving S3 full access as a permission boundary. Right. So then click on next, review. So this time I'm giving a permission boundary. Then scroll down, create a user. So now let me quickly log in as this user. So here the username is test user 1. Log back. Link. Username. And here I got the password. Sign in. Old password. Confirm password change. All right. Okay, I got the issue. So we have set up a permission boundary that is not allowing him to change the password. So what we can do is change boundary. All right, let me 1 second. Let me show you this. So I have removed the boundary, guys. So that boundary is not allowing me to change the password. Why? Because that is something related to IAM. Come on. This is the old password. Password change. All right. So now I have provided S3 full access and I want to add a permission boundary. Sometime back, it's not allowed me to create a password. That's why I removed that permission boundary. Setting the permission boundary is an advanced feature. Okay. Let me go and pick the permission boundary and set boundary. So as I mentioned, this S3 is a 6 technically. So if you compare, so this is what the boundary. So S3 full access is a 6 runs for this test user 1. So at moment, he have permission to hit the 6. If you gave more permissions also, what happened? That's what I want to test. So now I'm navigating to S3. I'm navigating to S3 and without any difficulty, we can access. Okay. Now, if this guy try to access any other services like EC2 or any other services, so will he allowed? No. Why? Because he have a policy. He have a policy that provide permission only on S3. But now what I'm doing, I'm going to add permission. I'm associating administrator access, review, add permissions. See now with this user contains S3 full access, administrator access. So with these permissions, this user should get access on EC2, right? But whenever we navigate, whenever we are trying to give refresh and all, he is not able to. He have admin access, but if he is trying to access any other services, it's not going to allow. Whenever we navigate here, see, you still have administrator access, but he is not able to access. See, are we denying anything? No, we are not denying anything. Which one is causing this issue? So here permission boundary. So how big permissions you have, that doesn't matter. This is your limit. How big permissions you have here, that doesn't matter. So this is the highest permission you are going to get. For example, you remove this Amazon S3 full access. Still, this administrator will give access only on S3. If you remove both, this is just a boundary. So having a boundary won't give you 6 runs, right? So this is just a boundary. It won't provide any permissions, right? So if you want to verify the same thing, navigate to policy simulator. For what user you want to test one user. So with all these things along with the permissions boundary, can this user perform something on S3? Okay, can this user create a bucket? Create bucket, run simulator. See, with all these permissions, he is allowed. But apart from that, like let me take an IAM user. I'm taking an IAM user or take any other service. Identity and access management is IAM. What operation? I'm trying to create a group. Can this user create a group? See, it's denied. Why? A permission boundary is there. This permission boundary is denying. If he don't have permission boundary, can he? Yes, he can. So permission boundary is defined to give highest permissions for that user. Okay. So I hope the permission boundary part is clear. What is the right
Yes, sir.
practice to create policies? Suppose I want to allow S3 access to a user, just need to create policy for S3 or need to create a policy for Denny. So it depends on the use case. You need a user, that user required permissions on only S3 access. So in that case, you don't need to create any Denny permission and all. So that's what I'm mentioning here. In this initial case, yesterday, did I talk about anything Denny? No, right? But today, it depends on the requirement or scenario. That's why I clearly mentioned here. I hope I answered your question, Prasanna. Right. So next thing, that is, it's an inline policy. It's the same. Like, it's just like a policy only. How exactly we are going to create? Same thing we can create, but that policy will applicable to only that particular resource. So whatever the policy, for example, you have a user that is member of a group and all, but for that user you want to get for that user you want to give a specific thing and all. So you want to make it as an integral part of that particular user. So for this Avinash user, I want to associate a policy. So those policies we have here. So these policies I really don't want to use. So integrally, I want to allocate one policy. So here add inline policy option is there. So I'm clicking on add inline policy, choose a service. What service? Okay, I'm creating a policy for S3. Okay, then I'm going to select all the resources and all resource review policy. So this is S3 inline is the name I'm giving. Scroll down, click on create policy. Now one policy got created, it is associated to this resource. But what is a policy type? It's an inline policy. Now if you go to policies, if you are trying to search with the S3 inline, you won't find it. So whatever the policy we created sometime back, that policy will be inlined to only this particular user. So in what scenario we are going to use? For example, one user is member of a group. So how the permissions is going to allocate? From the group level, we are going to get the permissions. Along with the group level permission, so you want to give special permission to one particular user. So in that case, then go and create a inline policy. For one single resource, we can associate this and all. That is a inline policy. Okay. So now let me quickly give a task. So now you know how to create a policy, right? Now the task is, I want you to create an IAM user, and with S3 full access, So generally he can log in and he can access S3, but we have MFA, right? So this user S3, this IAM user need to activate MFA. So if he is like, beside to that root user or beside to whoever have IAM full access, so he can call him and he can scan and he can activate MFA. But this user is like, this user somewhere else. This user is somewhere else, and we need to create a policy to activate our IAM MFA himself. Whenever we associate that policy to this user, he must get permission to activate MFA or deactivate MFA himself. So create an IAM user with S3 full access and create a custom policy. Create a custom policy to activate MFA himself and associate and test it. So I'll show you. So here I have a user, S3 user. This user contains only S3 full access. So now I'm logging as a user. Sign out. Right, log back in. Must change the old password. All right. All right, the password got changed. So I logged into this S3 user. Okay, so this guy have full permissions on S3. So he's sitting somewhere else and he want to activate MFA for himself. For that, he need to go to this my security credentials. He need to navigate to this MFA. See here, you need permissions. This guy is not authorized to perform this list MFA devices. First of all, it's not listing. So whenever he is trying to select this, he don't have permission. Now, what my requirement is, I want you to create a policy to activate, deactivate, sync, resync. So this permissions should allocated to this user. So for that, what policy you are going to create? So navigate, create a policy. MFA is part of IAM. Go to policy, create a policy, search IAM. I'm showing all the steps almost. And here, many actions are there. Expand all. What are all the related to MFA? List MFA device. Without this guy don't have this permission, right? So that's why it is not listing. See here, list MFA device don't have. So select it. So similarly, what are all the permissions he required? Provide MFA permission and allocate this permission to that user. Then he should activate MFA himself. But apart from this tab, everything should be gave error, need permissions and all. But this MFA should be available. So that's what the task for today. And another simple and straightforward task: create an IAM user, add S3 full access, add S3 full access and admin access, over user access. Add all the three permissions. Along with that, create a Denny S3 and associate this policy also. Now use policy simulator to evaluate the permissions of this user to create a bucket. Whether this create bucket option is allowing him or not, that I want you to evaluate. Right? So what are the limits of an IAM servers? So Prasanna, why you are going out of the box? I'm going to talk about that, right? So instead of concentrating on the topic I'm delivering, so you are trying to go to different topic and you are coming back with different questions. So my suggestion, see, I tell you one thing. This is my 89th batch, guys. And this is not my first batch or second batch. I know what to deliver, how to deliver, at what time I need to deliver. So please spare some time. I'm going to talk about that. So yeah. So this document I'm going to upload to our S3 bucket and I'm going to share the link. So the link it's going to be iam.txt, same link as yesterday, but you will get a new link. Give me a minute. I'll share it.
Avinash, I am having a question, right? So
Yes.
when we were talking about policy boundary, right, you took an example where you give the user a full X3 access, right? And in the policy boundary, we have defined that the user will be able to access the full S3, right?
Yes.
And simultaneously, we gave an IAM access, which we were not able to do because the boundary was set to full S3 access. So I didn't quite understand the use case over here of full boundary, because we know the boundary is already set to S3 and we were just giving two permissions, full S3 and access denied. So that was quite understood from the policy boundary that no other service apart from S3 will be allowed to access. So can you give some meaningful use case, right?
Exactly. So I'll, for example, take any cricket match. So whether batsman is hitting sixer or not, are you going to have a boundary or not? We will have a boundary.
Yes.
Will that boundary give you any runs?
No.
So That boundary won't give you any runs. So that means the boundary policy, boundary we associated, but that won't give any permissions. It's just a limit we are setting. First thing. Second thing is whenever you allocate valid permissions, that permissions means when the batsman is hitting. So whenever you associate S3 full access, at that time only that boundary will come and it will verify, okay, whether the resource he is trying to access, will it come within the boundary or not? If it is coming within the boundary, yes, it provides the access. If it is not coming within the boundary, it won't.
Okay. So can I say that, like, I mean, you have given permission, kind of power access to an user, and in the policy boundary you have defined S3, right? So it is like user will be able to access the service S3 only, right? No other service.
Yes. So if you are setting boundary to S3, only S3 can be accessible, no other services. That's the first statement. On top of that, I'm going to add another statement. User must have S3 policy associated, then only he can, otherwise he cannot.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So any other questions, guys? So I have uploaded the document, text document, and I have shared that link in our chat box. So whenever you click on that link, so you will get this document, give a right click and save as. So save this in your local machine, please.
So Avinash, I have a question. Like in mid-range companies, normally are they using AWS policies or inline policies or boundary policies? What kind of most of the policies in general?
Okay,
In the
most
corporate
of
world
the
they're using?
times we go with the AWS defined policies. But in custom scenarios, we create our own customer managed policies. These are the widely used one. Boundaries, as I clearly mentioned before starting the session, that we don't use much. It's an advanced topic. And, I want to share my knowledge and that, like, if you're taking any online course or if you're going to any other courses, that guy will teach you and he will end up only at policies only. They won't teach you permissions, boundaries, or inline policies. But in real time, yes, of course, we use that. And to test your knowledge, for example, they might, like in interview, they will come up with a question like, okay, you have an IAM user and that user is trying to access S3 service, he is not able to. So what are all the areas you are going to verify? You might get that question in your interview. So in that case, you mention, okay, I will verify policy, I will verify resource permissions, I will verify group permissions, and 90% of the guys end there itself. Whenever you are mentioning permissions boundary thing, that guy thinks you have some genuine experience, real experience. And these permission boundary and all, you won't find any other in online courses or any other, like, instructors. We used multiple times, so that's why I'm covering this. So, and for your question, Avi, the answer is most of the times we go with the AWS managed policies and customer managed policies. When coming to roles, there we use inline policy, but that policy is inline to only one resource only. That is a logic. So it all depends on the requirement.
Thank you.
So, okay, guys. So you need to respond with your payment receipt to this given email ID. So I'm sharing that email ID. So you need to share screenshot of your payment confirmation. So just Naresh team shared a message. Whoever paid the fees, please respond, and whoever paid fees and send payment receipt to online training. So Naresh team send this message directly to me. So please respond to Naresh email along with your payment screenshot. So they might change this link in by tomorrow or day after tomorrow, or they might share like different things and all. So please get in touch with them, and that's it for today's session. Tomorrow we have some small options related to this IAM. Spare some time and create your AWS account. Start practicing. If you already paid the fees, so please start doing that immediately, right?
Sir, can you paste those two questions, the homework, kind of in
I
the
shared
chat?
that
Please?
entire URL, right?
Okay.
In
Okay. Sorry, my
that
bad.
URL itself, like you have that questions.
Okay.
I'm pasting that question again, right?
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Okay, so that's it for today's session, guys. See you again tomorrow. Thank you.